There we go.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Pathway's newest piece of curriculum called Get Set to Succeed. So we're going to talk about some of the tips and tricks that we know help people when they're getting ready to head off to work. Once you've got that job and secured it, then there's some more things you have to work on. So I'll start out, I want to look at long-term unemployment. So long-term unemployment is generally defined by most experts as at least 6 months up to 12 months, somewhere in that range of consistent unemployment. So some of you are in that period, so you're in what we would consider to be a position of long-term unemployment. The reason why we bring this up is because there are lots of negative side effects of long-term unemployment that you may not have realized. Of course, there's financial struggles. That goes without saying. If you're not working, you're trying to get by on OW or ODSP or whatever income you have, the financial struggles are very real. But there are a lot of mental health side effects that people don't realize that can come along with long-term unemployment for some people. So you might feel ashamed or embarrassed. There might be a strain in your family relationships because of it. That could come in all different types of forms. You might have lost some friends over the situation. You might have, your circle of friends might have changed. Things like loss of self-esteem are common, and we do see this quite a lot in our clients start to lose self-worth after a period of being unemployed. There's a lot of fear that can go with it. You could be afraid of repeating mistakes you made in the last job. You could be afraid of, I'm afraid I'm going to just lose another job. You might be afraid of the unknown, of trying something new. You might be having difficulty concentrating. You might have insomnia, worrying about things, or just plain old anxiety about change and what's next for me in my life. And those are all really common known side effects of long-term unemployment. So if you're feeling some of those things, we want you to just know that they're common for people who've been in long-term unemployment. The other thing is depression and anxiety, and we know that many of our clients do suffer with these. But did you know, I didn't know until I started doing research for this presentation, that people who are unemployed long-term are 2 to 3 times more likely to suffer with depression and anxiety than people who are employed consistently. So if you're feeling these things, if any of that is speaking to you or resonating with you, you're not alone. Those are definitely known side effects of long-term unemployment. And, but, of course, not all anxiety and depression is related to unemployment. So if you are feeling those things, always check in with the doctor and get assessed. Becky, I think this is where you're going to take over.
Yeah. So part of what we want to address today is giving you some tools to kind of switch from perhaps feeling this way and to get ready to move forward in your life. You might be feeling like you've been kind of stuck in the same route. So we're trying to give you some ideas and some methods in order for you to be able to move to a better place. So one of the things that we really need to be careful about is to make sure that we don't listen to that little voice that's inside of our head that tells us the negative things that make us feel depressed or anxious. We want to make sure that we are not replaying that audio in our heads over and over again, because that is not helpful and it doesn't move you forward. So the things in negative self-talk, usually they're repetitive. Usually they are things that have been said inside your head for years and years and years. And sometimes you don't even realize that it's happening until you start to pay attention. So do you ever hear yourself kind of speaking to yourself, saying things like, I don't have any skills, I've been out of work for so long, there's 400 people applying for this job, so there's too much competition, so why bother? Or I could never take that course, I would fail anyways, because maybe you didn't apply yourself in school, or maybe you didn't find your niche in school of the things that you really like to do. And so it just wasn't something that you felt you were good at. So you've listened to that voice over and over. Some people will think they're terrible at interviews. So I'm never going to get hired. So why even bother? Because I can't do it. I'm always going to mess up. I get too nervous. I don't want to. Or again, I was never good at that in school, so I can't do that. those are the kinds of things that you really need to pay attention as to whether or not you're listening to the words that are being said in your head that are stopping you from moving forward. So we want to change that. So we want to make sure, and it's a conscious effort. It's something that you have to choose to do. It is not something that necessarily comes naturally. It's not something that if you have a really good day, then tomorrow will be a good day. It could be something that you have to retrain yourself almost on a daily or even an hourly basis. I have that issue. There's things that I feel like are a big challenge for me, and I will listen to my self-talk a lot, and I have to change my way of thinking so that I push myself forward to do the things that I know are good for me, and they're going to be good for me. Oh, I'm just going to mute some people here. There we go. So let's go back to some of those examples of negative self-talk we had. So one of them was, I don't have any skills because I've been out of work for so long. So let's take that and kind of unpack that a bit. So is this a feeling or a fact? So when we talk about that you think you don't have any skills, you've been out of work for so long, you need to stop and realize that just because you've been out of work does not mean that you don't have any skills to offer. So that's actually not a fact, because you may have spent time with your children and been able to adopt some hobbies. You may be helping with people doing projects where you've been able to learn some skills. There we go. So those are called transferable skills. So actually, when you sit down and you talk about it and you make a list of things, you have more talents than probably you're aware of that can be applied to a job. So for that point, it could be a feeling, but it's also not a factually based one. So you need to be careful with that. Is there evidence to support that statement? So maybe you have been out of work for so long, but again, that doesn't mean that you don't have skills that you can offer. Would someone else see the situation the same way? Probably not. There are employers that actually prefer that people don't come with a whole amount of job experience specific to the job they're applying for, because sometimes that means they have to retrain them in a different way, which is sometimes harder. So if you come to them with transferable skills that you can apply, or the fact that you pick up things really quickly, or you're a fast learner, those might be things that they think are a little bit more attractive than maybe you having a long list of tasks that you've done in the past, which might not be exactly the way that they want you to do things. Again, is there another way of looking at this? The same thing as what I've been talking about. It's about trying to look for the positives instead of focusing on the negatives, which is hard to do. It sounds really easy as I'm describing it, but I know that it's not. So it's one of these things where you have to, on a daily basis, listen to what you're saying to yourself to change it so that it's in a positive way. Sometimes people have surrounded themselves with others or environments that perhaps aren't positive. They have been listening to people tell them perhaps they're not good enough, or maybe they shouldn't be doing these things. Sometimes it could be self-serving. Maybe people don't want you to go back to work because it's easier for them if you stay home. Sometimes people just don't have that ability to push people forward positively. So just because you've heard it for so long does not mean that it's true. And those are the things that you really need to pay attention to make sure that you're actually dealing with the fact and the realities of the situation. Oh, this is me too. One of the things that you need to be able to do is a part and parcel of it is taking some time for some self-care. So you need to surround yourself with positive things, positive activities to be able to maybe get you out of the so-called funk that you might be in just because you haven't been surrounded by positivity. So you need to find those things that work for you, whether it's listening to music, playing music, doing a new hobby, or something that maybe you haven't done in a long time that you remember caused you to be happy or to bring you some joy. Getting outside and getting out of the space of your apartment, especially right now as we're dealing with COVID, we've been shut in for a couple of months and encouraged to stay home. Being outside is something you are allowed to do. Being outside is something you're encouraged to do, and it actually helps with just your present state of mind. being able to smell the fresh air, to feel the breeze, to feel the sunshine, it helps with your mood. And as well, physical activity, it's something, even if it's just for a stroll around the block, even if it's literally just going outside, it helps to put your mind in a better state of, or frame of mind, so that you can get past the negative things that perhaps you've been surrounded with because you just haven't exposed yourself to anything else.
Okay. Is this me or do you want to do this one?
I think this is you.
Okay. So guys, everything's Becky's saying, you're going to have to do it more than once. You're going to have to do it more than a couple times, more than 10 times probably. You're going to have to continuously train yourself to do this. When I'm feeling in a funk, I know I have to get up, get outside for 5 minutes even. I know I need to do some art tonight because I've had a really rough, stressful day and I know that will calm me, or whatever it is, or pick up my guitar, or whatever it is for you. And you have to keep on doing it. And the more you do it, the more effective it's going to be for you, plain and simple. So we're going to do an exercise now. This is where you want to get out your paper and pen. And we're going to go through a questionnaire, and we're going to try to come up with at least 5 things that you like about yourself. 5 positive traits. And the reason why we're going to do this is because I want you to keep that handy. When you fall into those patterns of negative talk and negative thinking, you can refer back to your 5 things. Okay, so we'll get started here. So number 1, have you ever won an award? At work, outside of work, anytime in your life, have you ever won an award? Becky, have you ever won any awards?
Let me think. You know what? I have, because I like to do mud runs. And to be honest with you, I do it because I like the medal at the end.
Yep, yep.
I have a whole box of them, and it doesn't mean I was the fastest, or I wasn't the dirtiest, or I wasn't the most hurt at the end, but I did it because I wanted the award.
Yep, you finished it and you got the award for doing it. That's awesome. Okay, next one, next question. What's your favorite trait or skill that you have? For me, I would say probably my ability to accomplish lots of things at the same time, to have multiple projects going at the same time, and be able to remember and keep all the pieces and all the balls in the air at the same time. It's probably my top one. But you guys think about what yours is and write it down. And you don't have to have an answer for every one of these. There's way more than 5 questions. So if you can just come up with an answer to 5 out of the questions, then that's great.
Can I just interrupt you here, Laurie? I have one participant here that I don't seem to be able to mute. So if everybody could just make sure that you're muted. I have one that I can't, for some reason, be able to mute them. So just so there is less background noise.
Okay. Next thing, thinking about jobs or volunteer positions you've had, what positive things would your past supervisors say about you? Our supervisor's on the call.
She sure is.
Can we put you on the spot, Steph? Can we get you to say some positive things about us?
No pressure, Steph.
I noticed she's not coming forward.
Not. She is off mute though, so maybe she's thinking.
Okay, well,
I got nothing.
We'll keep going. We're not fired yet, so I guess we must be okay. Okay. What positive things would your past colleagues, your coworkers, or your customers say about you, depending on, what kind of roles you've had? What do you think your past coworkers or your past customers would have to say about you that would be positive?
Yeah, we have one of our participants is saying that one of her attributes is that she's prompt and reliable.
Oh, those are great. Prompt and reliable are amazing. Employers are looking for those things. Absolutely. Reliability is probably the #1 thing.
And by the way, apparently Steph was saying wonderful things. We just couldn't hear it.
Okay. Well, she's been having microphone problems.
And that's what's been said. She sounded like the Smurfs again. So.
Okay. I one time won an award from my customer for customer service years ago. So that kind of covers off 2 of these.
Yeah.
Okay, next. What adversity or challenges have you overcome in your life? So adversity is just a fancy word for hardship. What tough things have you been through in your life and overcome?
I would say for me, I would like to speak to that because sometimes people don't see it. And for you as well, Laurie, being a single parent.
Yeah.
That's a tough one sometimes. Being able to balance kids and school and childcare, depending on how old they are, and trying to move forward in your career, or just trying to, make sure that you have, your routine set out and enough energy to keep going, and then to keep going at nighttime. Like that's a pretty big challenge on a daily basis, and I think there's credit that needs to be given to any single parents, whether it's male or female, that you're doing all of that and keeping all those balls in the air. That's not an easy task to do.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, so if you spoke to the supportive people in your life, whether those are friends, family members, whoever they are, what would they say are your best strengths or best talents?
Oh, Laura, you just got a kudo from Steph. Do you want me to read it?
Oh, please.
I would say Laurie's top attribute is that she's very results oriented and excellent at getting work done really well and really quickly. Becky is excellent at creating relationships and gaining trust from stakeholders quickly and easily.
I would say that's true. I would say that's true about you, Becky.
I would say that's true about you.
Thank you.
Harvey says he concurs. Man, I'm getting all the warm fuzzies here.
You have a wonderful way about you with clients. You're good at building those relationships, and with employers too.
Oh, thank you. And you are like the master of this stuff, because see how Harvey looks, everybody? This is all Laurie.
Oh, it's really not hard. But anyway, what do your friends appreciate about you? Think about your friends. What would they say they appreciate about you? I think my friends and my coworkers have echoed this in the past. Appreciate that I will give you an honest answer. If you ask me something, I will tell it like it is. Yep. And I try not to be too blunt, but I'll give it to you straight.
Yep, I would say the same thing. And if I mess up on something, I will own it. I don't try to pass it off. I will own it. I will take my lumps. I will apologize. I will try to learn and do better in the future. That's been something I had to learn how to do, because goodness knows I've made lots of mistakes. So you have to own those.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. Have you done volunteer work in the community? Is there a volunteer organization or more than one, or a place of worship or a community center or something that would thank you for your work that you've done? Whether formally or informally. Have you ever helped out at your kids' school with things? Have you, participated in any volunteer programs?
I have some participants here that are kind of listing off some really good attributes: dependable, honest, good listener, giving good advice, flexible, resilient. So I think if you take the time to really just stop and think about your strengths, you all have so many of them that you just probably haven't taken the time to recognize.
Absolutely. Absolutely. What would your parents or children say they like about you? You can choose parents or children or both. According to my teenage daughter, I'm one of the cool moms. So I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but I'm in the good books with the teenagers.
My son likes the fact that he can come and shop in my fridge.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not quite there, but in a couple of years, I'm sure I'll be in the same boat.
Yeah.
Okay, the next one is, and I believe this is the last one. Have you ever taught someone how to do something they could not figure out alone?
Laurie, there's one of our participants that says that you seem like definitely a cool mom.
Oh, that's so nice. Thank you. I do my best. Have you ever taught someone? I taught Bob, if anyone remembers Bob, I taught Bob how to set up his files in an organized way on his computer, and he appreciated that. I've probably taught Sandy a few things about PowerPoint over the years.
I taught my nephew how to swim. Does that count?
That totally counts.
Okay, then now that counts.
Yeah, teaching things to kids counts too.
Yeah.
Not everybody can teach people things. So hopefully you all got at least 5 good answers there out of those questions to kind of help make you feel better when you're having those negative moments. And I would encourage you to keep that list close by so you can refer back to it. So,
okay, this is me, right? Okay, so starting work, it can be a little overwhelming, but it's really exciting, and it's something that you just want to do. You've been out of work for so long. You want to make some more money. You want to have a better way of life for you, your family, to be able to just take some of that stress off. But there is a process to it, and there's a lot of moving parts that have to be considered in order to make it successful for you. So you need to make sure that you're thinking of it in a way that you're ready for change. So you need to make sure that your mind is there. This is not going to be easy, and there's lots of things that you have to consider that maybe you haven't really thought about yet. But as long as you're open to that and you're ready to prepare for those things, because it does take a lot of work. It's not only a lot of work to go to work, but it's a lot of work to get ready to go to work. So you need to make sure that you're changing the way that you're thinking so that you're ready for those challenges and you see them as something to propel yourself forward instead of something that's a barrier as to why this is too difficult to do. Because it's hard at the beginning, but it's something that obviously in the long run, that's going to be where you want to be. You want to be working. The first couple of days, weeks, even months, you're going to be really, really tired. You may not be ready for getting up as early as you need to. You might not be ready for maybe as late at night you need to stay up because you want to get lunches prepared and you have to get ready for the next day, or your day might be longer because you have transportation time in there where you didn't have to on either end of your workday. Will you be sore? 100% you're probably going to be sore. I know even from us working from home, now that this COVID thing has happened, my back is sore. And I'm sore sitting in a chair because I don't typically sit this much. So even though I'm not doing anything physical, I'm feeling it because my body isn't used to staying still. So, excuse me, it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to go to a labor-intensive job in order for you to be sore. It could be from even just something where you're sitting sedimentary at a desk. That could be really hard for you. How long will the physical adjustment take? Guys, I worked midnights for 6 months before I actually figured out that it wasn't for me, because I tried it for 6 months before I decided, you know what, I need to work a different shift because my body is not adjusting. But I stuck it out for 6 months. And it was really, really difficult. But I kept this kind of dialogue in my head of, okay, it's not going to be easy after 1 week. It's not going to be easy after 2 weeks. But I really gave it a shot. And that's the mindset that you're going to have. No different than the mental adjustment. There's going to be a lot of overwhelming things you're going to have to take on. You're going to be learning new skills. You're going to be having a new routine. It's a lot to take in, and it's a lot to all of a sudden become your new normal. So that's going to take a little bit of time. You need to be prepared for that. Was this still me, Laurie?
Still you. So this is where we want people to definitely chime in on the chat if you have any comments.
Right. So how much of your daily routine will change? Probably all of it. I don't want to be overwhelming, but probably all of it. You're going to have to make sure you get up at a certain time. I know for me, I have an animal, so I need to make sure that my dog is walked, make sure that she's happy and ready for the day and she's been outside and had some exercise. I need to make sure that my lunch is made, that I gauge for travel time, and if it's bad weather, I gauge for more travel time. And at the end of the day, you know, you still have to do your groceries, you still have to do your laundry, you still have maybe kids to take care of, you still may have things that you're involved in outside of work that need your time. So it will change, because if you're not working right now, there's not a lot of focus on the other things that maybe have to happen in a routine way. So that will change. The people in your life, they're going to experience the change. They might not be the ones going to work, but for instance, you know, your children, you won't see them as much as maybe they're used to, because they're used to you being home. You may have to delegate so that you have, and we'll talk about this in a little bit, you have meal times might look a little bit different, because you won't have time to do maybe what you've been doing presently as far as making meals or the time in which you're eating meals. It's a lot of change, because you have to change the whole routine that you're doing now, because you're adding in anywhere between 35 and 40 hours if you're working full time of being away from home. So it's a really good idea to start having those conversations with your family and your friends or any other people that draw on you for support or that are part of the routine, that they have expectations of your time. You need to make sure that you're starting those conversations and almost paving the way for a little bit of different thinking, because your focus is going to be changing to becoming employed. All right, here's a big one. So if you have children, this is something that you need to prepare them for, because kids are really resilient, but they need a little bit of help when it comes to change, because even though in the long run, kids adapt, they absolutely adapt. But at times at the beginning, sometimes it's not so easy. So make sure that you're dealing with them in an age appropriate way. So a 3-year-old versus a 12-year-old, how are they going to understand the situation? How are they going to interpret? Do they really know what's going on? Do they understand why it's going on? So you don't want to address the kids in the same way if you have different age children, and your focus and your approach is going to be different based on each child. You need to give them time to talk. As a parent, it is really easy to make assumptions on how your kids are feeling or what they're thinking. And it may surprise you, because given the chance to actually talk to you and having the freedom to express themselves, you might hear different things that you weren't expecting of how they process things or the things that they are thinking, because they've interpreted things their own way, not necessarily how you think that they would. So you need to make sure that you give them some validity, and that you express to them that how they're feeling is okay and it's normal, and we're going to figure it out. The worst thing that I think you can do is to dismiss them, to say, you know what, you're going to be fine, it's going to be fine. That's their stress, that's their anxiety. So the more that you work through it with them, the easier the transition is going to be. And they're also listening to you. They're listening to you talk to even people like your friends on the phone or other people in the house about this new opportunity. If you are constantly overwhelmed and saying things like, oh my goodness, I don't know how I'm going to do this, I'm so stressed, I need to make sure the lunches are made, and I have to get the groceries done, and the kids aren't bathed, and on and on and on, kids will pick up on that. But if they listen to you say, you know what, I'm not sure how we're going to do this, let's figure out some new ways of how we can get things done at the end of the day, because mommy has to go to work or daddy has to go to work, and I'm so excited because I get to meet new friends and I get to learn new things. That's what they're going to hear, and that's what they're going to remember, and it offsets the positivity in your home. So I don't know if many of you know, I have a history of working in childcare. And so I have a lot of experience with children having to come into a new environment that's different, a little bit scary to them, and it's hard sometimes. So there's a lot of things that I've learned over the years, not just from being a parent, but also from being in that environment, of things that can help children with transition, because that's what this is. So being prepared and doing things ahead of time, like setting an alarm together so they know, because they're probably going to have to get up early if they have to go to childcare. setting an alarm so that they know this is when we're going to get up, this is going to be the routine, helping them pick out what they want to wear so it's not a struggle in the morning, because as parents, we all know that it seems like such an easy task, and all of a sudden the way that you think it should be is not the way that it is, and your daughter wants to wear rubber boots and a polka dot pair of shorts on a winter's day. And that's not maybe something that was a good idea, but if you go to the task of doing that the night before, you might be able to avoid that problem in the morning, which will make it a smoother transition. Children take time to adjust. When I was working in childcare, sometimes children who were dropped off at childcare, they would cry, and they would cry for a while. And that's okay. That's normal. That's part of them adjusting to the transition. It's okay for you to leave them as long as you are feeling that you've left them in a safe place with, adults that are there with their care in mind, and they are in a good, safe setting. Children will be okay, but they also might regress a little bit. We had children at the daycare who didn't eat a whole lot during the day because they just were confused and trying to figure all this out. We had children that maybe didn't nap as much during the day as maybe they would at home. And so when pickup time came, they were a little grumpy, and that made for the evening a little bit harder because they hadn't gone through their normal routine. We had children that perhaps acted out. Maybe your child is a very, very happy child, but being put in a different situation, they may become a little bit aggressive because they're territorial, because this is new for them. These are all ways that behavior can come out when they're dealing with the transition. So do not be alarmed. Do not give up. Do not think that you're doing something bad by putting them in these situations. This is helping kids to learn. This is helping kids move forward and develop their self-help skills and problem-solving skills, but it's hard. So just keep in mind that they're going through a transition too, just like you, and it is all very, very normal, and it will even itself out, absolutely. This is exactly what I talked about before. You want to focus on the positive. You want to focus on all of the good things that are going to be able to come out of this. So yes, it might be difficult because it's a busier morning and a longer day, but you can talk to them about the fact that, with my new job, we now have more money so that we can maybe go and get ice cream on the weekend, or we have the ability to maybe purchase a vehicle, or to be able to do something, or to move to a nicer home, or to be able to just go to the dollar store and you can pick out 3 things that you want. The freedom that working will give you is something that's a positive thing that can be explained to children. It's all about you as a person investing time in yourself, because they need to see that that's a part of your life as well. You are going out, you are learning new things, you are making new relationships, you are building your career. Those are all positive things to be able to show your children that you're working towards, and they're going to learn from that. Even if they don't vocalize it, they are learning from you. So a couple of just really easy tips and tricks. For little children where you have verbal skills that might be a little bit, if they're young and they can't actually say what they're thinking, you can do things like morning routine charts where you have pictures that identify in the morning. I know that I have to get up, I have to put my clothes on, I have to brush my teeth, I have to eat my breakfast, I have to pack my backpack, I have to be out the door, maybe the clock has to say an 8 on it, those sorts of things. And once they've accomplished that task, they can put a sticker on a piece of paper, or put a picture. You can use pictures with Velcro on the back, and you can attach them to a board. So they have that feeling of accomplishment. And you'd be surprised of how many times kids are excited just because they've been given the task of completing a chart, or they get a sticker. It's part of involving them in the new routine. So they feel like they have a part and they have a job to do, and that makes them feel accomplished as well. And it helps them understand the process of what's happening because it's different than what they know. Again, examples for older children, no different as a chore chart, because you might have chores that your older children need to do when they come home from school because you might not be home from work yet. Giving them a little bit of responsibility and working together as a family. You can do it with rewards, you can do it without rewards. There's a whole bunch of different ways. I mean, Pinterest, the internet is full of those things. but just incentives to be able to include them instead of just assuming that they're going to roll with the punches. Because if you have them buy into this process, they're excited. There's new things that they get to do. And as long as you help them along that journey, it's going to be something that they understand the benefits from.
That set of expectations there at the top is actually my own expectations for my kids. And I am a cool mom after all. So they know they're expected after school to do their homework, make their lunch for tomorrow, the dishes have to be done, and then they can turn on the screens.
I have one client here who is saying things about how today she had to be in class, or when she was in class, sorry, she would wake up at 5:45 in the morning just so that she could get everything prepared and ready for the day. Or some people are saying here that they would prepare everything the night before or doing it in advance. And that's what we're trying to get at, is just to be moving ahead of schedule so that you're not being reactive, you're being proactive. So you're ready for the day. It makes you feel more organized. It makes you feel like you have control of what's going on in your day. That helps to start your day off so much better. I mean, you think about if you were to sleep in and sleep through your alarm and you had 10 minutes to get out the door, the rest of your day usually doesn't turn out to be as organized and relaxed as you'd hoped it would be if you had woken up, had time for a coffee, you know, you were able to have a conversation with your spouse or your children, and then you went off to work. It sets the tone for the day.
Absolutely.
Again, this slide is more of what I've been talking about. The family is a team. We all have roles to play. You know, being able to teach them to be independent because you were out at work is a good thing. It's something that's setting them up for the future. It's setting them up for success. And it's teaching them really, really valuable life lessons that they need to learn that are not always automatic. So it's something that might not be easy. It's something that might be just like, you know, you have to tell them over and over again. You may have to do it on a daily basis. It's like that negative self-talk. You might have to retell yourself those positive things every day. It's the same thing with children. I'm sure you as parents know all about that. But talking to them and trying to explain it to them on their level goes so much further than not involving them in the process.
Okay, so we are embarking on a new normal, and honestly, when we wrote this, we didn't know how much of a new normal we were going to be heading into, but regardless, starting a job is a new normal for you. You know, things are not going to go back to the way they were, and you got to move forward in a new way. So things like your sleep pattern, your childcare situation, your commute, you're going to have a new budgetary situation to navigate. And you need to have a new strategy for meals, work lunches, less time to cook dinner, so on and so forth. So let's break this down a little bit. Changes to your sleep pattern can be tough. It can be really tough if you've been used to, you know, in this example, going to bed around midnight, getting up around 9. If that's been your pattern and you start a job where you have to get up at 5 to be able to get there in time, that's going to be a rough go for a little while. So if you have time to do it, if there's a little bit of time between now and when you start, when you get your job offer, if there's a bit of time, adjust your sleeping pattern just by 15 to 30 minutes a night if you can. And if you don't have that kind of time, then do a little bit more, do 30 or 45 minutes a night, just to gradually move yourself towards the time that you have to get up. And we say this every single CTT class. I don't know if we have any CTT grads on the call, but we always harp on this with them, because the construction industry starts work at 7. If you're lucky, it's 7, it might be earlier. And that means you're there at 20 to 7. So you got to be up bright and early to make it to a construction site on time. Many factories are the same.
Laurie, you should tell the example of your son that was working last weekend.
Oh yeah. So my son, as all teenage boys, has gone nocturnal at the moment without having to be at school at a certain time. So his part-time job started back up on Saturday, and he had to start teaching. He teaches karate for his part-time job. He had to be there to start teaching at 9. So he said to me on about Wednesday, "Oh geez, Mom, I got to start work at 9 on Saturday. That's going to be rough." And so I said, "Well, here, you know, you got to start going to bed earlier now. So Thursday, I woke him up at noon and I said, you got to get up, buddy. Like, I know it's going to be a rough day, but you got to get up. So he got up. And then the next Friday, he got up a little bit earlier. And then by Saturday, he was good to go. And he went to bed early Friday night so that, you know, he could balance his sleep back out. Teenagers can do that really easily. Those of us who are a little bit older than teenagers usually have to do it a little bit more gradually than that. But yeah, we've definitely seen that happen lots of times. So when we're talking about transitioning to childcare, if you have the opportunity to do so, if you have the time, as I said, if there's a bit of a delay there, take your kids into the new childcare provider for an introduction. Let them meet their new teachers and be excited about the change. You know, tell them how lucky they are. It's going to be so fun. They're going to meet new friends, all those kinds of things, whatever works for your child. But keep the talk positive, because they will pick up on your feelings and your words, whether you're using positive or negative language. And all kids of all ages take time to adjust to new situations. You know, when you start school at the beginning of the school year, every child takes a little while to transition, to get used to their new teacher, their new setting. It's no different with younger children who have to go to childcare for the first time or to change to a different childcare situation. Just give them time, listen to their concerns, and that'll help them make the transition much more easily. So thinking about commuting, if you normally take the bus, you're going to want to visit the workplace at the time you will normally start by bus. So your interview might be at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Great, it's easy to get there at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. But what if you're starting work at 7? Do you have to take a different bus? The buses right now are running on a different schedule than normal. But even when they're on their normal schedule, you still may have to do a different route or a different, you know, change at a different place or something, depending on the time of day. So make sure you've done a dry run at the time you're normally going to be starting work, so you don't run into any issues on your first day. Have a plan in case that bus is late, because we all know they can be late. Get in the habit of taking an earlier bus if possible, so that you arrive at work a few minutes earlier than you need to. And then finally, I would suggest get to know people at work as soon as you can and find out if there's any carpooling options for, you know, instead of taking the bus, or on days when, you know, you may need to get there earlier or stay late or something of that nature. So we took a look at the cost because, again, it seems to be the CTT, I pick on the CTT class, but when I used to work with them, I would always tell them, and make sure you guys, you have a bus pass for the month of your co-op, because you don't want to be stuck halfway through co-op and realize you don't have any bus tickets. So we broke this down, and it's interesting. If you're just paying cash every time you get on the bus, and you're going to work 21 days a month, which is the average amount of work days in a month, for 42 trips, so there and back 21 times, it's $126. If you buy tickets in bulk, 5 at a time, it's $94.50 to get back and forth to work. You can get a full bus pass for the month for $95. So for 50 cents more, you can go out in the evening, you can go on the weekends, you know, so on and so forth. And certainly 95 is a whole lot less than 126 the last time I checked. So you're spending 50 bucks a month extra, really. Sorry, not 50, 30 bucks a month extra if you're paying cash for your bus tickets, bottom line. If you're going back and forth to work every day or back and forth to Pathways every day for a course, and you're buying a ticket each time, you're spending 30 bucks every month, more than you need to. And then they do have a weekday only bus pass, if that's something, if you think, you know what, on the weekend, my grocery store is right beside me, I walk there, I only need the weekday pass, that's $81. They have the low income bus pass, but as you all probably know, it's not available to people who are receiving money from OW for a bus pass. But if for some reason you're not getting money from OW for a bus pass, or when you start working, if your caseworker takes your bus pass money, which sometimes they do, there is the low income bus pass, which is only $61, and that's the same as the $95 pass. It's a full bus pass. So if your income from the previous year was under $20,000, you qualify for that $61 a month bus pass as well. So I guess you just bring your tax, your statement from your taxes into London Transit from the previous year. So for right now, it would be the 2019, your 2019 assessment from Revenue Canada. You bring that in, and if you're not receiving money from OW, if you're getting $95 on your check from OW, then London Transit is not going to help you out. Okay, so if you are a driver, if you usually drive, I'm going to say have a few bus tickets on hand and know what bus route you have to take just in case you have car issues. Or know somebody, get to know people at work and make sure somebody who lives nearby you have their number in case, your car won't start one day. It's a little thing you can do to make sure you're covered and you don't end up missing work over a car issue. And at the beginning of the week or on the weekend, whenever your day off is, fill up your tank with gas then. So you have your tank full and you're ready to go for the week. It's one less thing you have to think about during the week. You are going to want to set yourself up a new budget. You're going to be making, even worst case scenario, if you're starting a full-time job, you're going to be 3 or 4 times as much as you're currently getting from social assistance. So you need to figure out how you're going to budget that. What's the new budget going to look like? Or else you risk really just spending it carelessly, which we sometimes see. So we don't want that to happen to you. We want you to really think and set up a thoughtful plan for how you're going to budget. There is a place called Credit Counseling Society, which is a nonprofit organization that helps people with all types of financial concerns, budgets, and anything else you have, any other type of questions you have. And there's their website, nomordebts.org, and their phone number. It's absolutely free, and they can help you with setting up a budget. So I suggest, after you've been paid 1 or 2 times and you have a pretty good idea what your paycheck is going to look like, that's when I would suggest starting to work out that budget and start to get on track with your financial goals. What are your financial goals down the line once you're working? I know it's hard to think about that right now, but it all happens very quickly when you start working. And I would encourage you, if possible, to work a little bit of savings into your budget so that you have something to fall back on if the job doesn't work out. If you're in the job for a few months and it doesn't work out, if you've been able to save up a little bit of your paycheck each time, that can help avoid you ending right back up on OW. Okay, Becky.
Okay, so this is, we're gonna talk a little bit more about the preparation part of making this successful for you. And we're gonna talk a little bit about meal planning. And I have been a single mom. I have been in, a 2 adult person household, and I've also been in a single household with just me and my dog. And so all of those different scenarios can benefit from meal planning. So even as a single person now, you think, oh, that's not that big of a deal because it's just me. I don't have to worry about it. It is absolutely something that is helpful because it helps you eat properly, gives you good nutrition, and it actually helps you save money. So I want to talk a little bit about that. So you want to make sure that you're doing this on your day off. So it can be a large, kind of a cumbersome thing when you first start doing it because it's something you haven't done before. So give yourself just a little bit of time, whether you want to make a whole bunch of things or maybe just 1 or 2 dishes to kind of portion out, and you'll be set for the week. So some ideas here, and I welcome other people if they want to put in on the chat other things that maybe they have made that are really good for splitting and kind of putting in portion controlled containers. But here we have lasagna, chili, mac and cheese, roasted chicken, potatoes. I mean, you can see the list here. Soups and casseroles are a really, really good thing to be able to make a large batch of and then use containers where you can put them either in the fridge or the freezer to be able to prepare for the week ahead. So you want to break up the food into portions. So you can even just get containers at the dollar store. They don't necessarily always have to be in containers. You can use Ziploc bags. If you have fruit that is just on the edge maybe and you haven't been able to eat it up, you can throw it in a Ziploc bag. You can put it in the freezer and it can be part of a smoothie the next day. You want to use clear containers so that's really easy to see what's in there. We did not have clear containers when I was growing up, and so it was always like a surprise when you opened up whatever was in the fridge because you weren't sure what you were going to get or how long it had been there. So you want to make sure that you either use a dry erase marker or even the painter's tape. The green painter's tape is really, really helpful because it comes off whether they're frozen containers or not, to be able to identify what's in there. You can put the date on there if you're putting it in the freezer. It just kind of helps to keep you more organized. So at the beginning of the day, you're like, okay, what can I pull out? It's frozen now. I can throw it in the fridge or put it on the counter, or, you know, depending on what it is, whether it's muffins for the morning or whether it's a meal for the nighttime. And then you don't have to think about it. It's one of those things. You can also use your crock pot, which is a huge thing, but it's all about being prepared and thinking ahead of time, because even as a single person or as a person with small children who, you know, they're hungry, they're grumpy at the end of the day, what's the first go-to? You know what, we're just going to go through drive-through. We're just going to order a pizza. And right there's $25 to $35, depending on how much you're buying. Or even if you get those hot and ready pizzas from Little Caesars, that's still $5, $10, $15 that you could be using to buy ingredients to make 4 meals instead of just one really quick, not so nutritious meal for you or your family.
And labeling is critical if you live with teenagers like I do, because they will eat your food.
That's another thing. Yeah, you want to make sure that this is for lunches and this is for dinners and this is for snacks. Actually, I have a friend of mine that has a basket where, you know, they're trying to get their children to do their own lunches. This is back when school was on, obviously. And she had a basket of, let's say, you know, cheese strings and little yogurt tubes. And she had a number on the basket that said pick one. So they knew to pick one of those out to put it in their lunch. And they would have another basket that had pre-cut vegetables in it, and they knew to pick one. And then in the cupboard, they would have another basket that had maybe cookies that were, you know, sectioned off into Ziploc bags, and you're allowed to pick one or pick two or however it is. Because then, I know as a parent, the dreaded task of making lunches the night before when your kids are small, I did not enjoy that. That does not make me a bad parent, but I did not enjoy that. And so you help them with learning those skills for themselves. So again, it's the whole labeling thing. One thing that did come up, there was a participant that put in the chat, always making sure that you have something that's in your cupboard or your fridge as you can use as an emergency meal. So for those days where you sleep in, and you're thinking, oh my goodness, like I gotta go, I don't have breakfast. And so what are you gonna do? You're gonna run to Tim Hortons because I might as well just get a breakfast sandwich or a bagel or whatever. And again, you're dropping $5, $6, $7, and you're feeling rushed. Whereas if you had like oatmeal packets, or you had different things that were in the freezer because you've made those little egg cups that you can put things in and just grab a couple of them in the morning, that's another way to make sure that you're starting your day off properly. Even if you've slept in or the kids are having a bad morning, it's about being prepared for that.
Yeah, I agree. Having like a canned soup that you like, that you know you'll eat if you bring that for your lunch. If you're in a pinch that morning, go, I don't have lunch today, you can just grab that can of soup that you know you will eat, or your can of whatever it is, or maybe it's a frozen something. Even those frozen entrees, if you shop sales, are still a lot cheaper than going out for lunch.
I have one participant here that says they get a mammoth chicken from Metro. It says they strip the meat, eat the pieces as your actual meal, and then freeze the big pieces, and then you can make meals after that because you have chicken that's cooked in the freezer. That's a really good idea.
Great plan, yeah.
So again, this is also just a slide talking about what we already alluded to, and the fact that you want to assemble your lunches in the evening. I used to do a really, really great job of making sure that my kids were all ready in the morning, but I never made a meal for myself. And I don't know why, but I wanted to make sure that my kids were taken care of and that everything was laid out, clothes were laid out, backpacks were packed, lunches were made, but I never did it for myself. And so in the morning it was a scramble of what can I throw in my lunch bag. And sometimes I would come to work with like a can of soup and a green pepper because I had nothing else and I hadn't taken the time. And you need to invest in yourself as well, making sure that you're taking care of your family, but you're taking care of yourself. So this is just a way to do that. Planning your meals for the week. So especially right now with the whole COVID time of life that we're dealing with, they encourage you to go to the store only once, at max twice a week in the grocery stores to minimize exposure to other people. it's always just a good thing to go and make a list and go to the grocery store once a week, because you're actually going to spend less money. Um, I used to run into the bad habit of, yes, there's food in my house, but I don't feel like that, so I'm just going to go out and get something else. And I would come home with another couple of bags of groceries that I didn't actually need. So then I started to plan out my meals of, I'm going to have 5 meals for the week. I'm going to have all of the ingredients for those meals. And you don't necessarily have to plan which one you're going to have on which day, because I tried to do that too. And then I didn't feel like having that on a Monday, and it kind of threw it off. But that way, you know, you have enough ingredients to have 5 meals. You decide in the morning what meals you want to have for that day, and that, you know, would result in taking something out of the freezer or just preparing something on the counter so it's easy to get to when you get home. But planning ahead and going to the grocery store with a list, with a meal plan, it saves you time and it saves you money.
For sure. Since we've been in quarantine, my teenage daughter has been doing the grocery shopping, and my grocery bills have never been less, because I send her with a list and she comes home with all the things on the list and nothing else, or maybe one other thing that, you know, that she knows that I like or whatever, but she's not doing what I do and picking up random things that she sees as she goes through the grocery store.
Absolutely. So this is you, Laurie.
Me? Okay. So in the first few days of work, or the first few weeks even, guys, don't judge whether you like the job until you've been there for a bit. The first few days of a job always feel awkward. It always feels like you don't know what you're doing. No matter if you're going from a similar job to a similar job, you're always going to feel a little out of place. So really give it a few days before you, or a few weeks, I would even encourage, before you decide if you like that job or not. And it's okay to be a rookie. Nobody expects you to be an expert on your first day or in your first week or first month, even many times. You need to just be a rookie, take your time, learn, and get to know your coworkers. That's your job in the first few days. Let the boss be the boss. So you're new there. Even if you have experience in the industry, even if you are an expert in that field, you're new there. So you need to act appropriately for your position. Unless you've been hired as a supervisor, nobody expects you to come in with all kinds of knowledge. You're coming in as a new person, and you want to just allow yourself that freedom to be new. But try to start to create a routine as soon as you can when you get into your job. So that'll help ease your adjustment. You know, if you have a locker, if you have a lunch time, if, you know, things like that, try to get that routine going as much as you can. And be patient with the company's onboarding process. Some companies, particularly large ones, have a long process you have to go through to get onboarded. You might spend a lot of time in front of a computer doing training, or sitting in a classroom doing training in the first week or so. And some companies just require that. And it's probably only going to get more noticeable as things start coming back online. There's going to be additional training. There's going to be additional things you're going to have to sign off about, you know, your symptoms and all that kind of thing. It's part of the process, and just try to be patient with it. So you also want to set realistic expectations on your social life. Right now, you might be able to go out any night of the week, do whatever you like. But when you start working, you're probably going to want to limit your social life to the days that you don't have to work the next morning for a little while, at least for a while, until you get back in the swing of things with work. Give yourself time to rest on work nights. If you need uniforms or tools, if there's special shoes you need, that kind of thing, we can help you guys access money from OW for that. So whatever it is, chat with your employment specialist about that. There is money available when you're starting a new job if you need, you know, work boots or non-slip shoes, or you have to wear a uniform that, you know, you have to purchase. We can definitely help with that. And easing the transition off of OW, we have a whole other 45-minute presentation about exiting OW and all the ins and outs of that, but we can help you with all your questions on that subject as well. So we're very knowledgeable about the Ontario work system and how it all works, how your entitlement is calculated once you start working, and how you need to report your income. So please, if you have any questions about that, check in with your employment specialist and we can help you through that as well. So now we want to hear your tips on transitioning to work. What tips do you have to share with the group? Becky, was there anything in the chat? Anything else already in there?
No, there was the ones that I already mentioned about meal planning. There is one participant here that's just saying that when we transition into work, that it's just really important that we adhere to all of the different COVID restrictions that are going to be in place there. Which again may take, like you talked about, it may take longer with the onboarding process. It might take longer to do things that you necessarily not previously had to take the time to do a certain way, just because there's going to be restrictions about how far away you can be from people, how long it takes to get from one spot to another. Just something to make sure that you're expecting, because it's just part of our daily normal now.
Yeah, exactly.
No, I don't have any other kind of tips and tricks from everybody. It's been great. People have been adding in that I've kind of interjected throughout our presentation. So the participation has been great.
Great.
Oh, and there was one participant that said as well that it might take longer if you're taking the bus to get to work. So again, your day will be longer to anticipate. You know, you may have to leave the house at 7 and you might not get home until 6 o'clock at night. So that's a reality as well.
Yeah, I read something about that there's probably going to be a limited number of people allowed on the bus.
Yes.
For a
Yeah.
while at least, so that may slow the buses down.
And this is something where you can really empower your children to be able to help. They could set the table. They could put things in together for dinner if you have older children, because they've already been prepared. Or you can make sure that they know as soon as they get home, they need to get their homework done, or they have a list of chores that have to be done before they can watch TV or those sorts of things, to get that out of the way, because those jobs are still going to have to be done. Your household is still going to have to function. You're going to have to find time to put the laundry in and to cut the grass and you know, to get the groceries and to clean the bathroom and all of those things.
Yeah.
And that's a big transition, because you've just taken out maybe 50 to 60 hours of your week, depending on how far your transit time is and how long you're working. You've taken that time out of your daily schedule, but none of the things in your daily schedule can change in the fact that you still have the expectations to do all those things. So empower your older children, get creative with maybe your friends and your family, so that you can make this transition just a little bit easier.
I agree, Becky, and I think that often we feel guilty as parents asking our children to do things that they haven't been used to having to do. You know, we feel as the parent we should be the one doing all the cleaning, doing all the chores, doing the laundry, cooking the meals, but that's just not true. And in fact, if you're not teaching your children those skills, you're kind of doing them a disservice. If you're not teaching your children at an appropriate age how to do dishes, how to do laundry, how to cook a simple meal, how to, sweep and mop the floors, those kinds of things, if you're not teaching them that, how are they going to be prepared for life?
Right.
So this gives you a real opportunity to teach them some really valuable life skills that they're going to need. Because I don't think you want to be going over to their home when they're in their 20s to do their dishes for them.
Yeah, that's not going to happen. Nope.
No.
I have another participant here that says, unless you have to wear a uniform, make sure all your work clothing and shoes are comfortable, because you'll be in them for a while. And this is actually a really important piece of information, because one thing about being stylish, it's another thing about being functional. When I first started working, I worked in a manufacturing plant years ago as a supervisor, and I had to walk the plant and do inspections. And I wanted to have this cute little pair of work boots that I thought, were cute, because I had to wear a uniform, and I thought, these are the ones that I want. So I bought them, and they were a little bit snug, but no big deal. I had blisters so badly I actually couldn't put shoes on after the first day. And I had to get this. I had to wear my father's work boots, which were 3 sizes bigger than mine, with 3 pairs of socks so that I could still walk properly, because heaven forbid I call into work because I had blisters on my feet.
Oh my God.
So those cute little work boots had blood stains in the back of the heel part because they were so bad, and I never wore them again. And I went to work with my dad's size 13 work boots, until my feet healed. And I learned my lesson really, really well because it wasn't about looking cute. It was about being functional. So a perfect point,
Yeah,
making sure that what you're doing and what you're choosing and spending your money on for work, it's functional.
I love that point. That's excellent. Even if you're sitting all day, if you're sitting all day, you better make sure those pants are comfy for sitting.
Right. I have another participant here that's talking a little bit about how to do homeschooling for kids. And I think that's another topic that we can talk about at a different time because if you're homeschooling your children, chances are you're not working outside of the home. You can't really do both. So, again, COVID has created some challenges that we're trying to work through. Childcares have been given a little bit of ease as far as being able to let some children back in, but there's a lot of restrictions there. So unfortunately, that's something that's still a challenge that we're working through because it's difficult when your children are at home. But I think that's about it, Laurie.
Okay. Well, thank you everyone for your wonderful participation. We really have enjoyed sharing this with you. I hope you got something valuable out of it. And we welcome your feedback by email anytime. If all of you who are Pathways clients have our emails, and please share with us what you thought. And thanks for joining us today.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.